Vadim, so where have you been these whole 3 months? I was at my estate, my dear friend, in the county of Sussex. And what is it you were doing? Well, besides breaking in a new trotter, I haven't forgotten about our conversation. I've been to the county library and conducted a vast amount of research. And I found what you and I spoke of. Oh, really? Yes. Here are the documents, and the information they contain is utterly curious. Are they inside your briefcase? Of course. Since I brought them to show you. Very well. Let me suggest that we go to my house and you can tell me all about it in detail. A splendid idea. Besides, it's starting to rain and you have such a cozy chimney. Our matter took quite an unexpected turn. Let me show you what I was able to find at the county library. Take a look. What is this? These are absolutely unique materials on the case number 5 that you and I discussed. I've only one copy, so please be immensely careful. These are the answers to the questions that you and I sought. You intrigued me, my friend. Undoubtedly. When you see the specifics, you will not only be intrigued, you'll be astounded. The truth is that those algorithms you and I have discussed have been discovered. They make it possible to eliminate all the mistakes and confidently manage any activity straight to a level where it's flourishing. And here is what's been discovered. While researching the subject, this question was posed in the most unexpected way. Is there a sequence of actions bringing all spheres and pursuits together? A sequence of actions that people went through, intuitively or not, which they use to keep their activities continuously improving and keep moving up. And yes, these steps have been found. It turned out that this activity is not dependent on whether it's being conducted commercially, socially, or if it's a country or even the life of a single person, or even family relations. They all fall into these formulas and follow the same steps. It has been discovered that there are 25 steps in sequence that start with the very inception of an activity and go all the way to the top, to invincibility, basically to a level, that is, where this activity cannot be stopped without declaring war or without large-scale annihilation. The lowest level was termed non-existence. Well, because it's as if the activity didn't exist yet. For example, let's take a firm. When it just comes into being, let's say we have a few founders here and they have signed the founding papers and they're just sitting around celebrating this occasion. But no one knows anything about this firm's existence. Practically, it doesn't exist as a business entity yet. And this is why that level is called non-existence in this sequence, the point of inception. And the uppermost level, when it has gone through all the levels and has traveled all the way up this staircase and has done all the 25 basic steps, then the top level is called power. Take a look at restaurant networks carrying the same brand spanning the globe and you'll know what I'm talking about. There are 30,000 restaurants with a capital M. How much effort do you think would have to be used to bury this company? An unbelievable amount. That's right. It's easier to declare war on some country than to close down that whole company which exists in 170 countries. That is what power is. When you could do something to it, when you could bring this activity down, but basically it doesn't. You would have to apply colossal efforts to make that happen. Or let's take a tree. When you plant a seed in the ground and it just sprouted, it doesn't yet exist as a tree. It's a sapling, you could say. It doesn't fulfill a tree's function, and you could easily destroy it. But then, if you imagine a baobab, and you try cutting it down with a hatchet, and it's more likely you'll break the hatchet rather than cut down the baobab. That would happen first, and you could say that this was the level of power. So, These 25 steps in sequence that take us from the moment of inception to a point of invincibility are actually natural laws, as it turned out. And the person who formulated them didn't invent them, of course. He simply looked and induced these steps, observing all sorts of activities. Do you know what he actually observed? It's truly interesting. He observed plants in his own garden. He observed an organization that he himself managed. And he also observed the lives and activities of man. And when he researched those steps, all 25 of them, and he applied these steps to tomatoes that he grew in his greenhouse, which was in the Sussex County, I actually found the newspapers of that period. You know, they were full of information like tomatoes the size of a human head, no fertilizers, cucumbers over 2 yards long. Incredible, right? That was simply an experiment in applying these steps to get something into power. And then, that man applied the steps to his own organization, and it grew 5 times in 1 year. That's a serious result. That was the very beginning, but there are 25 of these steps, and it's not an easy job of diagnostics. Just imagine that you're on one of these steps, for example right here, and you need to do the next step, not the previous. You've already done that. You have to do the next one. For example, let's say you just started applying these formulas. How are you going to find out where you stand? You need to figure out what step of the 25 you're on, and that's hard. There is too much information. So this whole ladder of 25 steps was broken down into flights of stairs, so to say, broken down into floors. There were 6 of them, and 6 floors is much easier. It's much easier for you to diagnose which of the 6 you're on. If you're on the first floor, on the second, on the 6th, rather than out of the 25, you see? That made the situation easier. And these steps in the sequence, these steps on the staircase that were included in each flight of stairs, became the formula for that particular stage. These stages were called conditions. They were called the conditions of existence. And here's their sequence. There are 6 of them. Non-existence, then there is danger, then comes emergency, after which we have normal operation, affluence, and the last of these conditions is called power, as we've already mentioned. People go through them in that precise order. And you and I come to head with these conditions, and so does any person. One could look at these 6 conditions and estimate which condition one's life is in. And here is where intuition would probably come in handy. Actually, these conditions transform intuition into a level of certainty of action. To go up the ladder using these conditions, you don't need intuition anymore. You can be a genius, act like a genius, and people will say, that is a genius. And you would have been a genius if you came up through them intuitively. If all that you say is true, then that file is priceless. It's absolutely priceless. And you'll be convinced when I tell you about each one of those conditions in detail, and I'll explain the formulas to you. How is this all related to statistics, my friend? Elementary, my dear friend. Statistics is the exact thing that allows you to diagnose which flight of stairs you're on. Look at what these statistics graphs look like. The graphs that, like dials on a panel, make it possible for you to determine where you stand. The statistic of non-existence is basically crawling at the very bottom or plummets downward. It's that exact thing that some people call not the season. The statistic of the condition of danger is simply falling. Emergency is when you have some production or income and the statistic shows that there is some quantity of it, but it's not enough, and there's too much effort that goes into it, yet few results. The statistic is either not growing or falling slightly. Normal operation That's a normal, slight growth that the organization is going through, because it's gaining experience and acquiring new clients. And if nothing stands in its way, it simply steadily keeps growing bit by bit. Affluence is a swift surge upwards, and then being consolidated at a totally new level. When the statistic goes up and stabilizes there, then that is the very condition of power.